I was given the opportunity to sit down with one of the most talented speedrunners in the world, Shizzal. Shizzal, amongst other things, is a Portal speedrunner with an incredible story.
I'm just gonna have to full send everything, and then all of a sudden I was in this finals match. All it takes is one guy to really change the perspective of everybody else.
He is one of only 3 players to ever hold a world record in all the major categories simultaneously.
I still remember the feeling when I did it too. It was like...
We learn about his swift rise to the top.
Yes, dude! Oh my god!
And how at one point, that was all taken away from him.
Immediately, 12 of my runs from like mid-2019 to towards the end of 2020, they were gone. All of that world record history was no longer mine anymore. Well, I'm way past my prime. I'll never reach the same heights. And I didn't realize that I still had talent.
We also learn what speedrunning can teach us about life, far beyond the limits of just the game.
If I just put my mind to something, I can do anything. The limit is what you say it is. If you believe in yourself, it does crazy things. It seems like a fun little thing to do, but then you really get into it, and like suddenly it becomes so philosophical. Speedrunning is very special to me because it taught me that very important lesson.
It was a great pleasure to be able to spend some time talking with him. At least to me, he is the greatest player to ever speedrun one of the most highly contested games. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Shizzal.
I think what you've done here, Wada, is you've unlocked a part of the Shizzal lore.
Welcome, Shizzal.
Thank you.
Shizzal.
How's it going, guys?
Good, good. Would you clear it up for everyone? Is it Shizzal or Shizzal?
It is Shizzal, although I've warmed up to Shizzle over the years. I've started saying it. I think I call myself Shizzle more than Shizzal at this point. But
right.
Don't do
Shizzal.
Shizzal.
I've been swapping.
You do
I've
Shizzal
swapped over the years.
Could be banned in my chat.
And Shizzalt, which we'll get to later.
Oh yeah, we could talk plenty about that, of course.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll start with a pretty broad question, which is, why do you speedrun? And for that matter, like, why does anyone?
I think that really the best way to describe speedrunning is it's kind of just like another form of chasing a high. Like seeing yourself improve over time, put in the work, and especially I think it's cliche, but it really is about the journey. Like, you know, this internal struggle for hours and hours and hours, and then you finally make something happen. And it's that feeling that keeps you chasing. And that's why I've been doing it with Portal for 6 years at this point.
Yeah, because, you know, people could make the argument that it's kind of like an arbitrary sort of goal. It's like the categories are arbitrary. Like what you're chasing is kind of, you know, you're just getting a number down on something that's not, you know, that we've basically made up. But yeah, I'm with you on that. The purpose comes from pursuing it. You know what I mean? And like, because we chose that this is what we do, then it's worth doing, just in as simple terms as that, right? Yeah,
I mean, we could talk about how it's arbitrary, but no matter what it is and how the rules have been formed, it's not like it doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it is, of course, it's a hobby and it's about fun at the end of the day, but it's what you make of it. And I feel like if I had stopped after 2 months, I would have a much different feeling for speedrunning than I do after, 6 years. And really just speedrunning has helped me explore a lot of my own, I guess, personality traits. And it's made me a much more perseverant, determined person in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, that was another question, like what's it's taught you? It's funny for me because what I've done is I like dip my toes in, I play for a bit, I hit a wall where I'm like, okay, now I've got to put in some real effort, and then I stop and I go away for 2 years. So for anything, for me, it's just proved that I don't have that
It's actually it's funny you bring that up because it was the same exact thing for me. I played for 3 months. I got a top 10 time at the time. It's actually really funny. For glitchless, this was like a 17, like high 17-minute time.
I know, it's crazy how much that category's come down.
Yeah, absolutely. But I hit 10th place. I'm like, okay, I'm never beating this, and I stopped for almost a year, and then I got back into it, and then from there, once I was just ready and I knew what I was getting into, that's when I put in all of my effort.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take it back. I assumed you were playing games before you were playing Portal.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, well, first of all, what games were you playing? And like, were you naturally good at those games before? Did you seem to have a skill, or was it when you found speedrunning that you're like, oh shit, you know, I can be good at something here. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so for a couple of years up to that point, and actually how I even got my online name was through Geometry Dash. And I've been playing that
Yeah.
for, at that point, I want to say about 2.5 years. So I put in probably easily 2,000 hours into that game. And that was my big thing at the time. I had played it on my phone for a while. I'm not sure if you're very familiar with Geometry Dash and
Yeah, I mean, I used to play it casually, and I've seen videos. You know, I've been watching your videos when you get records. I know it's like it can be a damn technical game.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And I feel like in a lot of ways, you know, so I did get to the point where I beat one of the top 50 hardest demon levels in the game, which was like my biggest achievement at the time. I put in like something like 13,000 attempts into the level I was beating.
damn, yeah,
Because in a lot of ways, what I was going to get into is speedrunning and Geometry Dash have many parallels in the way you practice and the way you ultimately need to persevere to the end to complete it. And I think coming off of that game, when I decided to stop playing that, because I actually had to, because I was getting pains in my hands, and I was like, I got to do something that's less technical. So, or not less technical, but less demanding on my hands, right? And that's actually when I picked up Portal. But I feel as if a lot of the mental skills that I gained from Geometry Dash carried over to my patience in Portal in a lot of ways.
yeah. No, I had the same thing with playing Melee, Super Smash Brothers Melee. I kind of messed up my thumb a little bit playing that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay. So you did feel like you were pretty strong at some games beforehand. Although it's Geometry Dash. Um, so I kind of think I have this theory that I think anyone can be a good speedrunner. Um, you know, for me, the games that I played is like Super Smash Brothers Melee, Counter Strike. I played League and all that other stuff as well. But whenever I played those games, I've been like I'm fairly average. I'm okay. I can learn a bit. I can grind a bit, and I get all right. And I'm not saying that you know, am amazing at Portal, but I always felt that if I put the time in with Portal, you will get the results. And there's something about like speed running and Geometry Dash kind of works with that as well, where because it's like almost just pure muscle memory, like if you grind, you will get good. So the question I'm posing is, you know, the whole idea around skill versus talent. And where do you think that maps onto speedrunning and Portal more precisely?
I think if I were to give it like a ratio, it's
Sure.
maybe like 90 skill, 10 talent. And
Yeah.
I feel that because I've seen quite a few people in the community over the years who weren't like immediately strong off the bat, but once they put 3, 4, even 5,000 hours into the game, all of a sudden
Yeah.
they're like the top dogs, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, you know, I feel like I've improved pretty fast at Portal, and I would say a lot of that is skewed towards natural talent. But I think like for everybody, it's absolutely different. And I am a pretty strong believer that as long as you put in the time with speedrunning, you can be good at it. And of course, some
Yeah.
people will learn faster than others, but like you said, it is about, in a lot of ways, it's muscle memory. It's just how effective is your practice? How fast are you learning? Is, I think, a majority of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. You know, it's not like chess where you're making sort of a decision with multiple outcomes, and then, you know, intuition really starts playing a role there. But yeah,
Mhm.
if you grind, it's going to pay off. So put in the hours. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no like third dimension to it. Like
Yeah.
you got to practice, you got to put in the time, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah, that's really all it is.
Okay. So on your practice, I remember hearing in one stream that you said when you were at the top of your game, that what you were doing is you were just practicing 1 hour a day. And is that correct? So you'd make sure you put 1 hour a day in.
Yeah, 1 hour
Um,
was it wasn't like a solid like point. Like I wouldn't put a timer on and be like, okay, at the end of 1 hour we just go in.
sure.
But for me, I felt my preference was I can't really play something for more than 3 hours without feeling really tired afterwards, fatigued, whether it's mentally or whatever it is, really. Um, but it is important to keep that routine, and it's important in speedrunning especially to identify what exactly you're struggling with. And I've always said that it's not important like how exactly you're messing up, it's why you're messing it up. You got to be able to identify what exactly am I doing wrong? Like, am I pressing W for half a second more than I should? Am I flicking my mouse too far down here? Whatever it is, your save load timing, it's really all about identifying why you're messing something up. And then what I used to do was I'd write them down. I'd be like, okay, so here's what went wrong in whatever stream. I'm going to practice this for next stream. And I would do that. I would practice for like 30 minutes to an hour. Then I'd fire up a stream and I'd do runs. And for me, that was just what was effective. And also, what's great about speedrunning in a lot of ways is if you make a huge mistake, you're never going to forget that mistake. It will be permanently ingrained in here. And
Yeah.
like I said,
you're right about that.
Yeah, it's all about identifying the mistakes.
Yeah, I feel that kind of is like part of what the talent is. You know, I think you can, let's say you're learning a chamber or a skip or whatever, you can keep butting your head against it and just keep retrying. But unless you make a change, then you're not actually going to improve, right? And it's being cognizant of like, okay, this is the input that's messing me up. This is my positioning or whatever it is. So being able to identify that is, I think, what helps you improve super fast. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to kind of you getting into Portal then. Like how did you get into it, and then maybe run through sort of what your rise was. You already mentioned that it was fairly fast. What categories were you playing, or all that sort of stuff?
Right. Okay. So I started with glitchless when I picked up the game. I actually learned through your tutorial. It was on speedrun.com at the time. So
Yeah,
I watched through your tutorial.
kind of scuff tutorial. Yeah.
You can learn Portal in like 2 hours and just go at it. So that's what I just did one night. As for how I got into it, like it was really, I had been watching GDQ for a couple years at that point, and at the same time, I believe mid 2017 was about when Summoning Salt was really growing a big presence at the time. So of course I came across his channel. He did a recent episode on Portal Inbounds. So Portal was just on my mind. It's something I played a lot when I was younger. I played Portal Still Alive on the Xbox Arcade. So it was a game I loved, and at the same time, it was a good length. So I learned it really fast in one night. Did a run with one of my best friends behind me, live. Didn't go that well, obviously. It never really does. You can't expect it to, but the first real push for me was like, okay, I can do better. So over the next 3 months, just with glitchless, I brought my time down to that 10th place time, and then said, okay, I can't do better. I'm done. Fast forward, I want to say maybe 9 months, I think it was. I think I stopped in September and started again around May, around that time, I guess. What actually happened was I still had demo files on my desktop. And my older brother, who's familiar with speedrunning, saw them. He was also a big TF2 player, so he knew about demos and recordings and all that. So he saw them, and he saw like my zip files and my PVs. He's like, yo, you were doing this the whole time and I never knew about it? Like, you should get back into Portal speedrunning. And it took some convincing because I was like, nah, my time's way too good. But eventually, I got to work. And I did my homework. I was looking at this, I don't remember what place it was. I remember the guy's name. His name is Moose Hockey. And he had a 20-second better time than me. And I thought his name was really funny. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to beat Moose Hockey. And that was the goal. So I looked at his run in a notepad. I marked down all my time losses. And I'm like, I'm going to focus on these maps. So I grinded those down. And eventually I beat his time. And I realized I could do even better than that. And not only that, but I was getting really, really addicted to the point where it was my summer break. And there was a point where all I would do was I'd play Portal for like 4 hours a day. And that was like my big thing. It was a daily routine. And I stuck with glitchless the whole time. And I brought my time down all the way down to third at that point, just playing glitchless. So people were like, who is this guy? And then really from there, I just expanded to a bunch of different categories. I went through inbounds. There was a late 2018 inbounds tournament that I participated in. I ended up winning the whole thing by surprise because I think when that tournament was announced, I wasn't even top 10 at the time, but I grinded it so hard that I actually managed to win the whole thing, which was awesome. And inbounds was also where I picked up my first world record, which was early 2019. So that was, yeah, even thinking about it now, that was a really fast rise just because of how much I was playing the game.
Yeah.
And then I think really that first world record gave me the self confidence I needed to get a bunch more over the years. And there was on and offs, but really ever since then, I've been upper level.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at what point, so obviously you kind of popped off at this tournament. First of all, so were you kind of grinding practice and not doing runs, and that's what kind of enabled you to have this kind of underdog? Or was it like, I don't know, you just completely outperformed yourself? What was it there?
It was more so like I'd get home from high school. I'd be like, okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna practice some chambers. I'm gonna do some runs, and I was big on just everyday practice and runs. It was not so much
Good.
do a bunch of practice, but I'd just identify my mistakes as usual, go through everything, do runs, and I always had a big focus on consistency. I was never a speed guy at first, at least. I always focused on okay, even if I'm like a second slow on this map, what's going to set me apart from other people in this tournament is can I hit this trick better than they can every single time? So that was my approach to the whole thing. And I believe there were quite a few matches where my PB was worse, but my consistency was so strong that I actually managed to make it a lot further than myself and really anyone else expected. And then all of a sudden I was in this finals match.
Yeah, and consistency is like that's what tournament play is, right? Like
Yeah.
no one's gonna, pretty much hit their PB. It happens, but like no one's trying to PB. You're just trying to get through the map without, messing up really. So
And
consistency is what you want for that.
yeah, absolutely. And I remember there were a few matches where I actually did PB in the match because I
Yeah.
was so focused on consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, and actually, sort of a segue there. Obviously, so you're talking about like you really focused on consistency. Like nowadays, would you say that that's kind of shifted? And to be at the top, you kind of really need to be quite techy. Like I know, so sorry, quickly, you were saying that you would do practice and runs, but like I know like Sidious nowadays, who's the current the current glitchless world record holder. He does way more practice compared to runs nowadays.
Right. I would say, my consistency, or we call it consistency, my trademark.
Yeah,
I still, I would say I've got it to a 50-50 now. Whereas before it was always consistency and I'm bleeding time like a couple seconds per map. Now
yeah,
it's like, okay, there are some really hard tricks that I'm gonna have to do, and there's also other maps that are easier that I'm losing more time on. I'm just gonna have to full send everything,
yeah,
and really, because I remember, especially with glitchless, where I was so far away from Sid. I was over 20 seconds. He was way ahead of everybody. There was a point where I had to be like, okay, I got to crack down on everything. I just got to do everything at full speed. And at first,
yeah,
your consistency is just garbage. There's nothing you can do about it. But at the super like high echelon top level, what you really need to do is it's not going to be consistent unless you grind for hours and hours and hours and hours.
yeah,
There's really no trick to get it consistent other than just play it so much that you get a perfect feel for everything. Everything just feels right. And uh, I found that really, while going for speed is a lot more inconsistent at first, and it's a very daunting task, what you notice through a lot of top players in a lot of games, like first thing I can think of is Celeste. This is this guy who's way ahead of everyone right now. And he does all these tricks that nobody even thought was like
oh,
RTA viable, too risky.
yeah, yeah,
But they do it just because they put in so many hours to the point where they have made it consistent for themselves. It's not consistent for the other 3,000 runners of the game, just this one person, because through practice they have managed to find a way to make it work. And I think that's
Yeah.
another beautiful thing about speedrunning is all it takes is one guy to really change the perspective of everybody else. To
Yeah.
You can finally say like, maybe this is possible.
Yeah, and every year we find something new and do something that we didn't think was possible before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keeps
Mm-hmm.
happening. Okay, and then so at what point? Okay, you've kind of risen to the top. You've got your inbounds world record at this point. At what point did you start thinking about the sweep? And for those who don't know, that's getting the world record in every single major category within Portal.
Right. So with the first sweep, because it's complicated. There's like multiple chapters to the
Yeah,
sweep,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if we put aside all the inbounds invalid record kind of stuff that happened, I really started to think about it. Honestly, I didn't even really think about it until I already had the other three. It was a 4 category game at the time. Now it's a 5.
yeah,
So I had glitchless, I had inbounds, and I had legacy. Um, and the thing about the out of bounds record at the time was the way it was there was this one guy that was Can't Even, who was just like Sid and glitchless. He was
yeah,
just 20 seconds ahead. He was so much further than everybody else. He had pushed it to such a level that nobody thought anybody would ever reach. So for a
yeah,
long time in my mind, I was like, okay, there is zero chance I get to this guy. But then it came to a point where I was like, okay, I have nothing else to do in this game. So naturally, the final step is getting this last record. And it took me a while. I remember it took me quite a few months to really catch up. But I still remember the feeling when I did it too. It
yeah,
was like, man, like, where do we go from here? And I think if we do talk about the future sweeps, I can get into it a bit more. But at that time, I was really feeling like if I just put my mind to something, I can do anything.
yeah. No, please do talk about the future sweeps. I'd like to hear about like your feelings when you did get the invalidated runs on inbounds, how that kind of felt at the time, and did it give you more motivation, or like what was
Yeah.
the mental state at that point?
I remember, I believe it was November of 2020. I was just sitting in class and I got this Discord DM about it. And I can't even really describe. I was so devastated, I really couldn't even say anything because at first
Yeah,
we thought it was just like one of my times. And then it turned out it was like 12 of them. And
yeah, 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 yeah.
I was really hard on myself. I kind of felt like, okay, everything I've done is it's kind of like a lie. Like I wasn't really like as good as I thought I was, and now the chance of getting a sweep is impossible because the game has been pushed so far, and so much has changed. And I was so down about it for a while. I remember that I was basically out of commission for like a year on getting the sweep or really just playing Portal at all. It would be like I'd stop for a few months, I'd come back, I'd get some record somewhere, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize that I still had talent. It was kind of just that was a fog in my brain that I couldn't get rid of. So every accomplishment that I had was kind of just overshadowed by the fact that like, okay, well, I'm way past my prime. I'll never reach the same heights. And then
Sure.
I
Well,
think
so
go ahead.
quickly, so you obviously did go to sort of disprove that bias that you had at the time. Would you just quickly describe what happened, why your runs were invalidated for those who
Oh
might
yeah,
not know?
absolutely. Yeah, I can describe that. There was this trick I was doing. So save glitches are a big part of the game, and essentially you're shooting portals, but you can't actually see them on screen. But the thing is, when you're actually not 100% certain where your portals are landing, in the inbounds category, there is a chance that your portals could be landing out of bounds. If you're not 100% sure, like if you don't go into demos, which allow you to see third person views of the map and you can just fly around and see where everything is, you would have no idea where your portals are landing. You just kind of have to trust the tutorial guy that your portals are landing in
Yeah,
bounds if you
yeah,
don't know how
yeah,
to check. So I was doing this thing that was very slightly faster, at least I believe. I thought I had seen someone else do it, but I think I was doing it wrong. And basically, this slightly faster shot I thought I was doing in chamber 5. Turns out there was a portal I was shooting that was just barely out of bounds. And this had completely slipped under the radar for a good year and a half. Nobody had actually went through and checked the demos, including myself, because of course it is my fault. I should have confirmed that my portals were landing in the correct spots. But yeah, because of that, I've been doing them in so many of my runs that immediately 12 of my runs from like mid 2019 to towards the end of 2020 were just not valid. They were gone. So all of that world record history was no longer mine anymore. So it was kind of just like, again, like I was saying, to me, it just felt like the whole past year was just a complete waste. And of course, that wasn't true, but I tend to think in the moment, I guess.
Yeah.
It's hard not to let that get to you.
Sure. And then what happens from there?
Like I said, I was off the game for a while, and I didn't really regain the confidence until late of 2021, where I kind of got the confidence. I don't even remember how I got it. I kind of just got it out of nowhere. I kind of just thought like, okay, for a while I've been thinking about like, man, I'll never reach those heights again. Like I can't get the sweep, this and that. But then I was like, you know, theoretically it is possible. Like it's not like the people at the top are inhuman or anything. They just had to put in the time and get there. So it was the matter of changing my mindset and being like, okay, I was pretty full of myself for a while. Like I just had this high confidence kind of ego, I guess, that like I could take any record in an instant, because at that point, when I was at my peak, that was kind of what I was accustomed to. I could just pick up a category because I had the sweep at the time. I could just pick up a category. I was a master at any of them. I could pick it up and I could world record by a few seconds. But now at this point, where in multiple categories, I'm many seconds behind. I'm like, okay, well, let's not think so much about I'm the greatest ever. Let's just get the record. Let's think about it more like, okay, I got to put in the work, and nothing's going to happen until I put in the work. And it was really when I was beginning to close the gap that I've been formed that I realized, you know what, like I can do it again. This is a thing that can happen. And over the course of 4 months, I just grinded a bunch of glitchless, I grinded a bunch of out of bounds and legacy because I'd missed the world records in all 3 of those categories. And really, I think what I learned from all this is, I did go and get the sweep in April of 2022, which was such an incredible moment for me. Like, I was in tears. I can't lie. That was just an incredible moment.
I imagine it's a proper anime arc right there.
Yes, anime arc, redemption kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I learned from the whole thing was like, and again, it's really cliche, but like at the end of the day, it's all about believing in yourself and having the self-confidence. Because if you're just completely out of it and you're like, okay, I can't do this, what's the point of even trying? Like, you just need to have that motivation and that confidence that like, okay, I have this goal. I'm going to reach this goal no matter what it takes. And that was the mentality that I needed to push through, rather than, okay, I'm washed, this and that, I'm not playing Portal anymore. It's just all about initiative. And if you believe in yourself, it does crazy things in speedrunning.
Yeah. Yeah, you're damn right. So do you think you need a goal to be the best at something? Does there need to be something on the horizon you're shooting for, whether that's, for you a sweep, or, for someone who's not quite as good, like me, let's say, getting top 10 or something like that? Does there need to be a goal or maybe someone to beat?
I think in a lot of ways, that is a big push for a lot of people, and it's what they need to kind of open their eyes, no matter what game they're running. Because if they're just like, well, I'm going to play till I get a good time, what's a good time? Like, good time is subjective. So, if you get a PB and it just feels good, that's different than being like, okay, I'm going to get an 11-minute inbounds time, and that's my final goal. And you have like a 14-minute inbounds time. You grind down to get to that. There's no like stopping in between. If you're committed to a goal that you can set, no matter how far away it is, obviously there are goals that are maybe a little too far-fetched and can get you burnt out. But if you pick a reasonable within reach goal that you can determine, I think that is probably one of the keys to getting really good really fast. If you just say, oh, I'm going to reach this milestone, no matter what it takes, and you hit that, I guarantee by the time you hit that goal, you're gonna be like, okay, I could have done better, and the cycle continues, and that's what's beautiful about speedrunning.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's how I feel every PB. I'm like, I beat it. I got the sub, whatever, but like, it's still not good enough.
Yeah,
You know,
there's
or not that it's not good enough, but there's more I can do.
There's more to be played. Yeah.
Yeah, more to be played. Okay, so from that point on, you said there were a few chapters. You're obviously where you are today, where I know you're speedrunning No Slaw a bit, a couple months ago.
Right.
What happens
I was doing that
between that sweep and to eventually where, you know, you move on to start playing some Portal 2, trying some other stuff? I see you're doing a lot more Geometry Dash again.
Yeah. So
Fill that gap for us.
yeah, that's pretty much it's not a very eventful period. So it's pretty much just then to now.
Yeah.
Really, after I got the sweep, I did everything I really wanted with Portal for a while, so I kept on the back burner. I went back to Geometry Dash, and I was like, okay, I want to get really good at this game. So I beat a few of the levels that were on my list for a while to beat, but I didn't think I had the skill at the time, and I went to go beat those, which was great. And then I went back to Portal 2 multiple times. At first, I was like, okay, I'll go get a 58-minute time. I did that. Recently, I was like, I'm going to go get a 57-minute time. That was a much bigger grind. I just recently got that.
Yeah.
And besides that, so I guess really with speedrunning, I haven't been doing it nearly as much as I used to. And there's multiple reasons for that, but I feel as if really what also was happening in the background when I wasn't speedrunning was I was creating content. And for me, that was very exciting. And especially, I would say, if we go to today, that's largely was on my mind. And what is, it's really just another way for me to enjoy Portal.
Yeah.
Where, you know, speedrunning I've done for such a long time. Of course, after a while, things are going to get a little boring. So I'm just trying to find a way to really, I guess, respark my flame with Portal 1 and Portal 2, and I channel that through making content.
Yeah, well, you know, what you did was incredible. And so you've had that story. And as you say, now you're on talking about content. I wanted to ask about this. I saw you literally just released a video. I watched the premiere of your beating Portal 1 with just voice commands. And you've been making that Shizzal content for a little while. Some skits and stuff like that. Yeah, where do you see your content? Where is it you know, what's the ultimate goal? Is it fun? Are you trying to, are there goals like with the speedrunning Portal? Like what's the mindset towards it?
To make goals with content creation for me is kind of a hard thing to do because at least because what I want to do is I do want to grow on the platform, but YouTube is so unpredictable. So it's really hard to be like, okay, I'm gonna reach 10,000 subs. I don't really know how long that could take. Like that's something that is kind of undetermined. So I guess for me, like the one solid goal I have is just release what I consider to be good content. And I feel like I hit that pretty well with the one I just released. I'm pretty proud of how it came out. I feel like my confidence with how good it actually was pretty validated with the feedback I got on it. And that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward that I can pick up these ideas I've had from years ago, bring them back to life. And hopefully my goal from that point onwards is not only growth of my editing skills, but also my growth on the platform, no matter what that growth looks like. Just come out of it bigger than I was when I came in.
Yeah. So I noticed like a huge jump. Like that was edited really good. I was impressed with a lot of stuff going on in that video. Kind of, I don't want to say it took me by surprise, but I guess it did. But yeah, as you say, it's weird with goals and content because the feedback in terms of numbers and data, it's you know, if you're pursuing a sub whatever, say a sub 16 in glitch test, you're just getting to where you're a reasonably good player. You know, if you take off 3 seconds off of a skip, you will save 3 seconds. But you can make a great video and it can flop. But the video is still good. I mean, my most recent video on YouTube is my most proud video, but it performed so much worse than the ones I did before. But I'm still happy with that. The video was good, and like that's ultimately the goal, right? It's like
Yeah.
you just want to make something that you're proud of, and that the people that did watch it went, hell yeah, that's good shit,
Yeah,
you know?
because that's a good feeling.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to Portal a little bit. I want to know, like, what do you think in terms of like the upper limit of speedrunning? It's kind of like a question you can't answer, but like, what's humanly possible? Because I look at, for example, the glitchless speedrun nowadays. You watch the Taz, that's a tool assisted speedrun, for those who don't know, and then you watch the actual world record, and the skips are like almost exactly the same. Obviously, it's mechanically like, insane and impossible, but like, at what point do you hit the ultimatum? I think with glitchless, it's more possible because you're not breaking the game. There's always a new glitch you can find. I find, but yeah, go with that wherever you want to go.
I feel that's a pretty classic question. I think like what is the limit? What is what spells the end of X category or whatever. But I feel
Hmm.
like after everything I went through with the sweeps and the self confidence, the anime arc, all of that, um, I have come to believe that like really the limit is wherever you say it is.
Yeah,
And if you amend your answer later to be something a lower time, then that's the new limit. The limit is really what you decide. And I guess with glitchless, it comes down to, I guess you could more concretely say this is a perfect run. And there will be times that are very, very hard to beat, but I like to believe that we always thought the game at some points or a certain chamber more specifically was solved,
yeah,
but we found a new way to do something slightly faster, even if it saves at this point 0.1 seconds. There's always new things being found, and really, the story only ends when the guy at the top stops, or the next guy after them stops, and I think that's truly what I believe in. I don't think there is a limit unless you say there is.
yeah. No, I'm of the opinion that it never ends. Like, I think I think you go to, infinitum or whatever. Like, if the timeline just keeps going, I think the time keeps coming down, no matter what.
Yeah.
Maybe not for Taz, but I think that's probably the case.
And it's all these things that make speedrunning such a beautiful. It's such like a you look at it at like outside, like surface level. It seems like a fun little thing to do, but then you really get into it, and like suddenly it becomes so philosophical. And
Yeah,
there's like 20 layers to it, and that's why I always love speedrunning. Like
yeah,
you can always learn something from it, man. That's what I feel like.
yeah. And you take goals to real life. People say that with Melee. It's another game. I draw a lot of parallels from Melee to, even though it's it's a 1v1, you're fighting someone else. There's something really similar about it. I know you've dabbled a bit, or you watch it. Is that right?
Melee, yeah, yeah. I mainly
Yeah,
just watch Melee. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
As
You
for
watch it.
Ultimate, I've I say I go to tournaments, but like the only tournaments I've done were at like conventions. So recently I went to SGDQ 2023. Just got back from
Yeah.
there. Wonderful time. I played Captain Falcon in that game. I went 2-2.
Nice.
That was okay. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
really.
that 2-2 is good, man. 2-2 is good.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I usually just play it a lot with my friends. I don't really play it outside of that, but
yeah.
I'd say I think my Switch said something like 500 hours or something into that game.
Sure,
So it's,
sure, sure.
you know, uh, but yeah, I mean, really, I think you can draw a lot of parallels from speedrunning to a lot of esports. And I think speedrunning should be considered an esport. I think we're at that point. Would you say we're at
Yeah.
that point?
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I think what really solidified it was all this YouTube content. Sorry, you mentioned Summoning Soul. All these channels becoming so big. The problem was it is still niche, but like without the exposure, it just feels like this. At least to outsiders, is like this. It's just some weird thing going on in the corner. You know, let's not pay too much attention to it. But as soon as
Right.
there's like these videos of millions of views going on, it's like, oh, okay, like they're doing something kind of incredible here. Something
Yeah.
cool's happening, and yeah, I'd consider it an esport 100%.
I do believe I like to believe we're past the point where we could call it niche.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
no,
we've finally
I'm with
broken
you.
into definitely mainstream, kind of well known. Any person who is into gaming at all at least knows what speedrunning is, even if they're a
Yeah,
casual player, you know.
yeah, yeah. It happened to work. They found out I was a gamer, and then they asked me what I did. I said, "You know what speedrunning is?" And they went, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, good,
Yeah.
cool. People actually know. That's cool."
Actually,
Um,
I was in this college course and I'd made friends with somebody and I always dread the question like what what games do you play? Because then I gotta be like, oh well, it's kind of weird, it's complicated. I play
yeah,
Portal.
yeah, yeah.
I've been playing it for a long time, and actually, to my complete surprise, the person I was talking to was like, "Yeah, actually, I used to speedrun Majora's Mask," and I was like, "Let's go, man! Like,
There
I
you go.
finally
Yeah,
found a brethren here."
yeah, yeah. It's cool. Okay, so I'm gonna finish on a final question, which is a little, I guess, a little bit lighter, but I am really curious about because I kick myself for not knowing this before. Um, you've obviously worn your white coat, your white lab coat, in a lot of your content, a lot of your runs. And I remember specifically with one of your glitchless runs, it starts lagging when you have that minute wait, right? You have that minute wait before you have to incinerate the last 3 cores, and you go, "The organization, they're out to get me."
I'm lagging like crazy. Oh my god, the lag. Oh, frames are back. Alright. Why? Dude, the organization. The organization is trying to lag my game.
I was rewatching Steins Gate the other day, and I'd never put 2 and 2 together. I was like, "Yeah, he's got some character, whatever." I probably should have known this, but what is the connection? Where'd that come from? And
Right.
assuming it is Steins Gate, I mean, maybe it's not.
I think
You never
what
know.
you've done here, Wada, is you've unlocked a part of the Shizzal lore. So this, yeah, okay, this has some layers to it.
Yeah.
So I was something we actually didn't get to talk about was in the summer, about 2 years ago at this point. My hand problems came back and they were really bad.
Yeah.
I could not use a mouse and keyboard without my fingers just absolutely flaring
Oh,
up.
yeah, yeah. I'd forgotten about this. Yeah, you're right.
So what I did was I had watched Steins Gate during that point, and it's one of my favorite shows. So I drew a lot of inspiration from it, and I had sort of connected a lab coat with a lot of confidence,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I couldn't do anything, so I kind of just wanted to screw around with people in the Portal community while I was off commission. So I had conspired my own organization, the Anti-Shizzal Schemers, and I had made that a big thing.
Yeah.
And in addition, I feel like in my pursuit for that sweep, um, the organization and the lab coat and all that stuff, as stupid as it is, it was kind of like a
Yeah.
secondary point of confidence for me. Because, I mean, Steins Gate also has some themes of like never giving up, having determination, this and that.
Yeah.
And I think just very consciously, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use this as my own motivation to reach what I want to achieve. I felt as though it was very inspirational and it worked. I think
Yeah.
now it's kind of a thing that's going to stay with me. Like, I can't get rid of it. It was in my
Yeah.
past. There's footage of it in my skits. Like,
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
away. But I guess I just, all that stuff has a pretty special place in my heart now because of what it helped me accomplish.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'd watched Steins Gate before, but it was years ago, and I'd mostly forgotten it all, and for some reason, just never put 2 and 2 together. But when rewatching it, I stood up off the sofa and I was like, "It's Shizzal," and it said to my boy, he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "That's Shizzal. That's what he's doing." So yeah,
Yeah, I
it
feel
kind of
like yeah, it was very clear cut, and something I've been trying to
yeah,
work on is actually develop more of like let more of my own personality show. And I think
yeah,
what's
man,
great about the video I just released is a lot of it is my style, my humor, and I think it shows a good version of me. I think even through expressing myself through editing, that's helped a lot. So going forward with content, going back to that for a little bit, I think that for me, the main goal is not only, I guess, grow, but also demonstrate to people the actual me, because you can't really see that through world record footage. It's just this guy playing this game. And
Yeah.
content creation gives you such a big channel to express yourself.
Yeah, man. That's how I feel too. That's what we're doing here. Is there anything else you want to touch on, Shizzal?
I guess I'll just like reiterate kind of the key moral that I learned through speedrunning. Like, the limit is what you say it is. And as long as you work towards something, I'm a big believer that talent is a very little part of the whole picture.
Yeah, man.
I think really mentality, speedrunning is it's a mental game at its core. And I think even just outside of speedrunning, but especially inside of speedrunning, what you need to do is you need to develop your own self-confidence. You need to give yourself more credit. And you need to say, okay, this is my goal. I'm going to do this. And if you do that, I guarantee you, if you don't stop, if you don't quit, you will reach that. And I think that's something I've been trying to drill into people's heads. But I feel like there's a good opportunity to really just say it and get it out. And that is why speedrunning is very special to me, because it taught me that very important lesson.
Well, good, man. If those aren't words for life, then I don't know what is. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I wish you all the luck with your content journey.
Thank you.
What you do.
And thanks for offering this. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun. Till next time.
All right.
If you made it this far in the video, then I hope you enjoyed. As you heard, Shizzal plans on releasing much more content in the future, so I'll link his channels in the description. Please head over there and subscribe. I plan on doing much more interviews like this in the future, so if you did like it, then consider doing the same for me. All right, see you next time.